Neuralink, finally, we're putting microchips in people's brains. The thing I've heard in sci-fi movies ever since I was a kid. It's how we make cyborgs. It's how we become advanced humans. It's just every sci-fi movie you can imagine. This is the epitome, the next evolution of humankind. It's what's going to take us to the next level. I'm personally super excited about it. Like, hey, ever since I was a kid, this was going to be the future. And this is one of those times where it's like, finally, some of the things that we had in the future that were like mind-bending, mind-blowing, this is what the future looks like, are finally happening. Because if you're like me, who's older, like I've heard we could put like robots, they were talking about putting chips in humans' brains and robots and controlling things and remotely controlling things and having robots on the moon. I mean, this is stuff they were talking about clear in the early 90s. It was in all the sci-fi movies, and it's finally happening. Now, it's not just Neuralink. There's two other companies, but they're not owned by Elon Musk, so nobody cares. But now we're finally starting human trials to actually put a chip in someone's brain. And this is where we get into that point of every sci-fi book hitting reality is, well, now that we're actually here, what exactly does this mean? What exactly can you do if you have a chip in your brain? Like what's going on here? And honestly, I think there's a lot of I blame Elon Musk for it. I don't think we're going to be talking with our minds anytime soon. It's just, I don't see it happening. It sounds real cool, and it's like it's making all the rounds on the internet and everything, but we are so far away from that. If you look at the videos of where they put the Neuralink into the monkey, so far the Neuralink chip is only reacting off of your motor cortex, the part of your brain that controls like how your muscles move and your stuff moves, and they got the monkey playing with the joystick. And it's just recording and doing the signals from an individual muscle twitching or trying to move, and it can get that signal to move the joystick. So if you ever look at the monkey that's doing it, he's like holding the straw, but he's like still twitching his hand. Like even though it's like, oh, well, the monkey's thinking about this. Yeah, but you can still see the hand move. It's just a faster link between the brain thought and the muscle movement, but it's not like the monkey can do something else. If he's using his right hand to run the joystick, his right hand can't physically do something else because he's just thinking about that. So that's where we're at right now. And we're supposed to start human trials, so it'll be a lot better, of course, because humans can understand what they're doing and maybe I don't know, separate their mind and meditate, become a different being or something like that. But the only reason I bring that up is because when they're talking about people talking using their mind, well, okay, yeah, the science will eventually get there to where it's like you can, judging by what the muscles in your throat's going to do and how you're breathing and your vocal cords, that you can instead of speaking, you can just transfer that to someone else's brain. But the problem with that is it doesn't take care of the whole language issue. It's not going off of thought. It's going off of the muscle movement for speaking. So that means if someone has a neural link in their brain and they're using it to communicate with another person that has a neural link, so far from what I've gotten, the best you're going to do is how I talk is going to be talked to you, but that also means I won't be talking at the same time. So my accent, the way I say words, is going to be based off what my vocal cords would do. And so, if you speak a different language than me, it's not like you're going to understand me. You're just going to be getting the same stuff going on as if I was talking to you. And that's the other thing they don't bring up about that either, is they're talking about a chip in your motor cortex, which is for moving muscles. They haven't mentioned anything about the eardrum. So if someone does have the neural link in their brain and they're trying to talk to somebody, well, how's he hearing? That's a totally different part of the brain. No one's even brought that up yet. So yeah, sure, in the future, but I see that being really far off in the future. Like us going from a monkey that when he twitches his hand, the remote isn't there, but it makes the little joystick move, but his hand still has to twitch, to me being in a business conference listening to somebody, but someone else can be sitting over there without moving or say in the middle of a speech and communicate with me through my chip while I'm still listening to somebody. It's that I figure that's way off in the future. And I think the only reason they brought that up and they're advertising it is kind of what I brought up about the sci-fi books. When I was a kid, I thought we were like just a couple years away from having like mech suits, robot suits, and like chips in people's brains and moving stuff. Because I remember like the first, the Superman, the one that broke his neck and got paralyzed. They were talking about trying to use chips to make him move his arms and walk again, way back when I was a kid. And then every so often, I remember when they came out with the first construction mech suits. It was a big yellow thing. They were going to use it for underwater work or something like that. And it has like the guy in the thing and all that. Like I've been hearing this stuff and seeing it in sci-fi for so long that if you all of a sudden just have an article and it's like, hey, you know, there's Neuralink and it puts chips in people's brains so they can move if they're paralyzed. If it works, yes, it's groundbreaking. But as an average person that's not paralyzed, I kind of already thought we were doing this a lot. Like it's not going to stir the same amount of, it's going to be a lot more of like, oh yeah, they've been talking about that since the 90s. Oh, that's good. It's only been 30 years. Oh wow, that's finally they started figuring out something after 30 years. It's not going to raise the amount of, you know, hype that they might need for investing or something like that. Where you're like, oh, we'll put a chip in your brain and you can just communicate through your mind. It sounds really cool. And it gets a lot of hype. It's all over the news, the internet. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Now, what I do hope does happen, and this is something that's like really what I'm way more interested in on this whole subject, is mech suits. Like the straight up like combat mech suits, what you see in like Halo and video games and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, they put a chip in your brain. We already have mech suits of like there's tons of mech suits. You can just look at videos of them. And it's got the guys and they have to put them in the body suits and they move and it goes off their muscles and it makes the robot move, right? Like we've been doing a lot of robot technology, been doing a lot of computer technology, and we just haven't quite meshed those two together yet. And that's where I think this is actually going to be like, yes, or this is going to be like its groundbreaking thing where I think there'll actually be a lot more like money and use for it. Like, yeah, Neuralink will be great if it can get paralyzed people to walk. And it's life-changing for those people. But when you're talking about doing stuff for the masses, one of the big things with mech suits and why they've been a problem is because like the way the current mech suits run, a person has to get in there and it's going off your arms moving to try to get the machine to move. And it's got tons of sensors, which just think money. It's got tons of all these sensors all over your body and where all your muscles are and where everything in your body is going to move. That's just money and complication. You're talking more computer, like computer processing, wiring, all kinds of stuff just to get the sensories of your body to make the machine move. And then the other problem is like each one of them almost has to be like custom sized to you because every human is a different size and different shape. And like you could be the same height as someone and have a different length of forearm when you're talking something that tiny and that little. And then not only that, there is the weird medical thing where like, depending on your genetics, some people have different muscles in different places than other people. So there's that too. Like so whenever they do a mech suit, you have to like almost customize the little inside for every individual person. And it gets real technical because it could be a little bit off and one guy just doesn't work as good as the other person does. And so where I think this can like really get in there is we already have the robots that are becoming mechs, like the bodies for them. It's just the human interface that's been really clunky and a problem. And like the people get in there and because like they have to have it a certain way so it goes off their move, like the suits aren't that comfortable. If you actually put a Neuralink in your brain that's going off muscle movements, and so yeah, it would have to have all the stuff for all the muscles in your body, so it's going to upgrade from where it's at, which of course it's going to upgrade. Like Neuralink's going to do good. But If you put a Neuralink in your body and then you put somebody in a Mech suit and the only interface is that Wi-Fi, or even if it has a wire on it going straight to the robot, then the only suit that person in the Mech suit's wearing around their body is something that's going to be for complete comfort. It's not going to have all the little sensors that have to move a certain way, and you have to hit a certain pressure to get the suits to move, which people talk about that use the Mech suits. Like, it takes them a while to learn it because you're learning to move your movement, but based off the pressure of whatever sensor was installed. And if you upgrade the sensor, then you have to relearn how to move. Where if you have a Neuralink in there that's actually going off the muscles in your body that it thinks are useful to move a Mech suit, you can be put in one of those, and it would be, instead of the rigid, everything exactly your size, it could be way more like a fluffy, comfortable harness thing that's just holding you, and you have the ability to move around, because as soon as you think to move your arm in your mind, if your arm's inside the Mech suit, it's not your arm pushing a sensor, it's the Mech suit moving off of what your arm does. And then you also don't have to worry about having to feel the thing at the end, because your arm is going to do what you're thinking your arm's going to do. And so you don't end up with like the monkey's doing with the joystick, where, oh, he's running the joystick, but his actual hand's like over there twitching, like kind of moving the motion. Instead, your arm will be going the full length of what you're thinking your arm will do. Just instead of you putting the effort and energy into it, the Mech suit will be doing it for you. And I think it'll make it faster, because it should make it faster, because the problem with the sensors is the sensors work good, but you got to realize the sensor has to get pushed on, there's delays in there, pushing on all these individual sensors, sending it to something. Then they also have tracking sensors to make sure the arm's exactly where it's supposed to be. Stuff like that. Well, the human mind can get rid of a lot of that. Because if you're thinking to the arm, hey, you need to move, and it moves, but it's not quite where you wanted it to move, you can adjust to that. And I'm sure there's a computer learning model that'll figure that out to where it becomes a lot more seamless and easier for you to just flop around inside this skeleton thing you're wearing. Or in some of the big ones, you're like in its belly or something. And I don't know, it might be, I can't think of one of the movies right now. The ones where they have them in just a bottle running around and the suit goes and does its thing. I do think we're a little bit far off from having say a Neuralink person controlling a robot that's far away from him, just because of the problems with signals. Like we've all used Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. It gets janky if there's stuff interference. I think we're a ways off from having someone just in a bottle or a spot and they're doing their work and they're controlling a robot far away. I know they do that already and they can do it, but it's always really slow and it's special tasks and whatever. As far as like, if I'm inside of a bottle running and the suit's out there running, I think we're kind of far off from that just because of a connectivity issue. And so that's why I think the person inside the Mech suit is like probably the first step to this. And I'm thinking way more of like what Halo looks like when you have the troopers inside their big armored suits and it has a power source. Because if you're going off of a Neuralink in your brain that's controlling all of the moving motions, but then can also like see and you can still feel to adjust it, that takes out a lot of the computing process that a computer would need to do. And so that's like a way better system in my opinion, a faster, efficient system of this robot has a certain task, the human has a task, and you're using your brain, but you're also using its electronics without having to have the robot or the exoskeleton have all of these extra sensors and little things lined all over your body that could go bad. It just has the one in your brain, and then you're in real time correcting the problem that's happening. So that's why I think Neuralink is actually going to get used the most effective when it hits the masses. Like I know right now they're doing the medical stuff, so they're going to help, paralyzed people walk, do stuff like that. That's where a lot of the money is coming from. That'll be the first place that it gets used in. But as far as a normal average person, where could I use this? I think the next thing is going to be Mech suits. And a lot of it's because if you look at the robot industry, they have tons of robots. They've been doing tons of cool stuff with robots. It's just in their problem, the computing power is the problem. Like the robot not tripping, not falling over, not getting lost. Like it's been a real setback for robots is the brains in the robot. But the bodies are getting so good right now. Like the technology, the type of composites we use is getting so good right now. And the robot just lacks the brain. And so I really think that like the first time we're going to see this hit like mass scale use is they're going to develop some type of mech suit. And once the Neuralink gets up good enough that it can control like bodily functions and it works in humans and all that other stuff, I think that's like one of the first things that's probably going to happen, because that's what'll get more people into it. Hey, if I'm going to go hiking and I can just like put myself in some legs instead of a wheelchair and then go on a hike and I don't get tired, that's something people might do. And it's a lot of this is what would convince somebody to want to put a Neuralink in their head. And like I said, I don't think the communication's it. Because, I mean, I don't care that much about the communication. I don't think a lot of people do. Is, okay, you can talk to somebody wirelessly. Or like with your mind. Why? That doesn't make sense. If they're not with me, I can just call them or FaceTime them. And if they're sitting next to me, I can talk to them. So there's no reason to have the talking through your mind. It doesn't make sense. That's not going to convince me to get a chip put in my head. Now, if it's like, okay, yeah, I have a job, like say I was some type of heavy, or say I was doing construction work and my knees get worn out and my joints get worn out or something, or I get a back injury or something like that, but I can put a chip in my head and get in a little suit and do the exact job that I have 20 years of experience doing and keep doing that without having to go get like an office job or a desk job. That's something people would do. Like that would be way more convincing as like, hey, you're really good at your job, but you're old and your body wore out. So you need to go learn a whole nother task and become an office worker. Or we can put this Neuralink in your brain and now you can keep doing your same exact job until you're like 90 or actually, or life expectancy, until you're 130. Yeah, people will probably do that. That would make sense. They might not exactly want to, but nobody wants to get old either. So I see it happening way better for something like that. How many old people do you know that stairs are a problem? Like they want to go do stuff, but they're just really slow and stairs are a problem. Would they put a Neuralink in so they could put on like a little exoskeleton system that makes it so they can walk around and go shopping themselves without having somebody help them, where stairs aren't a problem? I think that's where it's going to happen. I think the Neuralink, when it hits the mass public, the biggest thing is going to be these exoskeletons and these mech suits, because that just makes more sense to me of something that the mass amounts of people would want to do. I don't think young people will do it, which is going to be a weird one. Usually new age tech stuff, young people do it first. Young people are going to probably look at it and be like, oh, why would I do that? I'm perfectly fit. I'm more athletic than everybody. I'm fine. But old people who also have money, who are like hitting their 60s and 70s, and they want to go do stuff and go on walks and not be restricted, yeah, they'll probably do it. And I think that's probably going to be where this hits mass use, is replacing the old people stuff. Obviously, it'll first go to like getting people that are paralyzed to walk. But once it's done that, and you have other people seeing someone who's paralyzed using it, and they're walking around and doing their stuff, I bet anything you're going to start getting that group that's over 80 that still can think good, but they're just mobility shot. They'll be the ones doing it. So anyways, that's my opinions. I don't know. That's me ranting on that. If you have any opinions on it, if you think I'm way off or you agree with me on that, or if there's something I missed, just let me know down in the comments. Thank you.